Hello, and welcome to 20 Lore Pro, a community of Lorcana players who enjoy deck building, competing, and opening Lorcana product. You can find out more at our Discord community, 20lorepro/Discord, link in the description. We have tons of upcoming events, deck lists, and deck discussions. In today's video, we'll be watching Evolutions Trading Lorcana 1K, the top 8. Mooseberry piloting Amethyst Emerald versus Straffies piloting Amber Steel. Wish our competitors luck and enjoy the video.
Hello and welcome to 20 Lore Pro. Today we are at Evolutions Trading in Killeen, Texas, who's hosting a 1K Lorcana tournament into set 3 into the Inklands. Thank y'all so much for joining us today. We are setting up our player names and everything on the table as these players get ready. We'll get to see a top 8 match. We've seen Moose in a previous round playing Amethyst Emerald. He did the Ursulas, drawing 8 cards in 2 turns, singing Friends on the Other Side with Ursula. Very strong plays from him. Really excited to see him in top 8. We'll have to see who his opponent is on the right. But welcome to top 8 of Evolutions Trading Lorcana 1K tournament for set 3 into the Inklands. I'm your announcer, SirAshtown. Behind the scenes, our producer is Luxac. We want to thank y'all for joining us here today. If you're over on Twitch, we want to invite you to subscribe or follow. That way you can stay up to date on all of the latest tournaments that 20 Lore Pro is streaming. Our next big tournament that we have scheduled is on March 17th. It's the Hunter Burden Memorial, where we'll be hosting the Lorcana Championship. If you missed any of the previous rounds and you'd like to go back and watch them, head on over to our YouTube at 20lore.pro/YouTube, where you can watch all of the tournament rounds later on in the week. Again, my name's SirAshtown. I'll be your host today. Thank you so much for joining us. We really appreciate Evolutions Trading for hosting the first set 3 into the Inklands Lorcana tournament. Yeah, Gun Mage, we see you over there. Sometimes it takes a minute for these for our app to update live to the stream, but all of it's streamlined so that way the players can enter in their information. It should update automatically on our overlay. I'm going to take a commentator break just for a second to make sure I announce their names correctly, and I will be right back. I'm back, SirAshtown. Wanted to talk to the players, just make sure that I was announcing their names correctly. Straffies is on the right playing Amber Steel, while Mooseberry is on the left playing Amethyst Emerald. We've seen some really great Lorcana set 3 into the Inklands inclusions into these competitive decks, and really excited to see where Into the Inklands fits in the competitive sphere for Lorcana. As these players are getting ready for top 8, we just want to say a huge thank you to all the players here at Evolutions Trading, especially those who were willing to be on the stream for our feature match. A lot of times we can get into the top 8s and people cut or split the prizes, and so really great to see the top tier competitive event of the top 8 rounds. I'm interested to see as well how Amber Steel's song, possibly Amber Steel's song, is updated due to Into the Inklands. Steel just getting so many strong cards. One of those songs and actions being Along Came Zeus. Really powerful card that deals 5 damage to target character or location. Really has just seen a lot of play today. It being uninkable, but at 4, not seeing a lot of disadvantage from the card itself. And we are off with the top 8. DJ, also Straffies, is playing on the right. I'm being told that it's a Big Stitch deck. Low to the ground using Big Stitch Rockstar to try to draw cards. We've seen Mooseberry really take off with some of these Cursed Merfolk. Cursed Merfolk able to lure for 2, or quest for 2. He follows it up with an Ursula, which allows him to look at his opponent's hand. Very unique situation where you use Ursula like this early on and you don't get a hit. Ursula being able to take some of those songs out of your opponent's hands or non-characters. Straffies playing the Pride Lands, the new Amber land from Into the Inklands. This Pride Land making your character stronger when they're on it, and if you have a prince or a king, they cost less to cast. Trying to move your low cost, weaker characters, make them that much stronger so that way you're able to protect them, giving them 2 extra toughness. Both these players in top 8 really taking their time, making sure that they are making the best plays as possible, taking their time with every action that they do. Mooseberry allowing to play Merlin Fox, or Madame M Fox, so that way he can bounce his Ursula back to hand. That way later on he can play this Ursula late game and get a card actually from Straffi's hand. Straffi is drawing for turn. Top 8 has no time limit today, so these players will take as long as they need or to take these plays, make sure that they're making the best lines that they can. Straffi's playing the new Mr. Smee from Peter Pan, the fellow companion to Captain Hook. Really a great 2-drop, having a 3/3 body that quests for 2. Seeing the power of Madame M Fox take out the Pride Lands after it's been giving a Challenger 3 bump up from Merlin Crab. Mooseberry having a second Cursed Merfolk on board, a second quester that can give you 2 lore. Mooseberry really showing the power of this Amethyst Emerald pairing as he's using these bounce characters such as Madame Mim, Snake, and Fox to bounce his Ursulas back to hand, as well as playing these Cursed Merfolk who will cost your opponent a card while you are gaining 2 lore. Straffies. We see that he has a Stitch here. I have his deck list in front of me, and we see that he is playing the 4-Stitch Rockstars. With all these low-costing characters, having a Rockstar such as himself to help you draw cards can be really important. Mooseberry helping his opponent. We like to leave the card face up, that way we can see what we inked this turn, to remember that we did ink, and allows us, the viewers, to be able to see what players decided to ink, so that way we can determine if we would have made the same play action. We're also glad that they decided to do a top 8 with no time constraint. It's always good when stores can stay open. That way we can finish and continue the top 8 rounds. Mooseberry having 3 cards in his hand. We know that one of them is Ursula. To decide what his best plan of action is. I don't believe that Straffies has any cards in hand. Decides to smash in to Stitch Rockstar with the Cursed Merfolk. The way that Merlin Crab works is that whenever it leaves the battlefield or is banished, it can give a character +3, allowing the Cursed Merfolk to have +3 Challenger, giving it enough strength to take out Stitch Rockstar. That was a line that Straffies may not have seen or realized. One of the reasons why Merlin Crab can be so strong in a lot of these bounce decks. Straffies playing a second Mr. Smee. Another great low drop character. Again, that's one of the things about competitive Lorcana. It can be so hard to determine when the best time to quest is with your characters, to save them, or to use them to try to get a couple of more lore ahead, especially when you're playing against Amethyst or Ruby that have rush characters. Mooseberry playing his Ursula, Deceiver of All, one of the best Emerald cards from Into the Inklands, as many would say. This card just really giving you a lot of value, especially when you're using it to sing. Mr. Smee having gained a damage from its ability. Using the Ursula not to sing, but instead to get rid of a Pluto. Not really caring about the damage, knowing that he's going to bounce it with a Metamint Fox to take out the remaining Mr. Smee. Pluto being one of those cards in Amber that really helps these decks get ahead earlier than possible, almost acting as another lantern. It can cause your characters to cost less in order to play, while at the same time allowing you to have another character count in your banished field. That way you can cast Chernobog for even cheaper. In this deck, though, we know that Straffies is not playing Chernobog, but using this low to the ground Pluto instead to help him fill his hand when he has a Rockstar Stitch in play. Mooseberry playing a Flynn along with a Merlin Rabbit on the board. Uses the Rabbit to bounce it back to hand to draw a card after challenging one of Straffies' characters. Mooseberry playing another Ursula, the one that he had bounced earlier. Passing it back to Straffies. We're at 14-9 here in top 8. First game of the round. Mooseberry is up to 14. Straffies trying to find a way out at 9. Top decking at this point. Playing a Steel Hitta. 2/3 with Bodyguard, able to lure for 1. I may be mispronouncing it, maybe Kaida. Let me know in the Twitch chat if you've seen Shutter Planet, you know which one it is. Mossberry having a full hand of cards really has a lot of options for what he'd like to do. Looking at Straffy's, who currently doesn't have any cards in hand. I agree. Ursula singing Friends on the Other Side is a very strong combination, giving you 4 cards in 1 turn. As well as putting Friends on the Other Side back into the bottom of your deck. That's why many players say that Ursula, Deceiver of All, is one of, if not the, best Emerald card from Into the Inklands. Gooseberry playing a Rafiki. We've seen Rafiki be a good challenger from Into the Inklands, just a 0/2, but challenger 3, not able to take damage from hyenas. Really strong card that a lot of players are testing out right now to see how viable it is in this format. I've heard mentioned from a lot of players that in the early days of a new format, a lot of players tend to steer towards aggro lists, and cards like Rafiki can be great answers against those low-cost, early luring characters. Strappies looks at the board, seeing that Mooseberry is at 15 and decides to scoop it up. Mooseberry really just displaying the power of Ursula that game and showing us just how much this Amethyst Emerald color pairing can be very viable within this new set. That's something that I really enjoy seeing. I myself, not being a great deck builder, but seeing a lot of these other players be innovators and creators of these new archetypes as we enter into the Inklands. Straffy's leading us off here on game 2 of the top 8. Decides to ink an Aladdin into a Pluto. Now again, this is pretty scary, especially for Mooseberry, who is staring down this Pluto, who can help make your other characters cost 1 less to come into play. We'll see if Straffy's can capitalize on this and get out as many questers as he can this turn. First Merfolk not being a great challenger in and of itself due to it having a 0 attack. Straffy's decides to ink a Simba and play into the Inklands new location card, the Pride Land. Pride Lands being pretty viable in a lot of these aggro decks that we've been seeing today. They're using the Pride Lands to try to protect their lower toughness creatures by giving them 2 more toughness. The other big benefit of this card is that if you want to play a prince or a king, they're going to cost 1 less, also gaining you a passive lore each turn. Mooseberry playing a Chernobog's Followers. This card really has seen a lot of play in these Amethyst decks. It's a May ability, so when you quest, you don't have to banish it if you don't want to. But if you choose to banish it, you will be able to draw a card. Pardon, I see your question over there. What are the other colors in the top 8? We'll have the producer possibly type that in the chat later on for you to see. I have the current deck list in front of me for this round, but we'll see if we can't get the other ones, at least the color pairings, out to you in just a moment. Straffy's using that Pluto, making Simba cost making the Simba play free. Simba being able to cycle your hand just a little bit, give you the better card that you may need. See, Courser and Attack for 2, redeeming the 3 paired. 333. Appreciate y'all using your channel points. Straffy's deciding to move Simba where he belongs in the Pride Lands, giving him some extra toughness. And as his card indicates, preparing to become the future king. Mooseberry almost using his Cursed Merfolk with 0 attack to challenge. Did not possibly realize what card he had picked up and recorrected using the Chernobog's followers. Pluto not having an attack means that the Chernobog is able to challenge into Pluto, bash that without receiving any damage. This is another card from Into the Inklands that we've been seeing this game, this Cloud Kicker from Emerald. Last match, we saw the Cloud Kicker in Sapphire be played. In this case, Cloud Kicker is able to return a chosen character to their opponent's hand, making that move from Simba into the Pride Lands not as effective as it was during the turn. Thank you so much, Nexus, for getting that top 8 breakdown for you on the colors. We'll see if we can't tell y'all what the top 8 color pairings are. All while this match is going on here in top 8 between Mooseberry and Straffy's. Straffy's up to 3 ink. It's been kind of difficult for some of these Amber Steel aggro lists to get more than 3 ink in their inkwell. A lot of times they want to save and reserve all their characters to rush them out as fast as they can. Especially if they can save them for a shift into Stitch. Not quite sure what's in Straffy's hand, but it looks like he has a tough decision to make. We see that Mooseberry has not only this Cloud Kicker, but the Merfolk and the Chernobog's followers as lures and challengers, making questing with Lilo or Stitch very difficult to do. Straffy's deciding to play Simba, using it as a cycle for his hand. Decides to discard a Piglet. And he decides to use the Lilo to go into for 2 lore. We want to thank Evolutions Trading for giving us the top 8 pairing color breakdown. I'll read off for us the top 8 pairings for color pairs. We have Amethyst Steel, Ruby Steel, Ruby Amethyst, Amber Amethyst, Steel Emerald, Amethyst Ruby, Amber Steel, and Emerald Amethyst. For those of you who are trying to count, I see 2 Ruby Amethyst decks in our top 8. All the rest being another color variation. Back to our match, we see that Mooseberry played a Madam Fox and was able to challenge into and take away the Pride lands. The Pride lands having 7 toughness. Strathes throws his Simba into that Chernobog's followers, as well as the Lilo to try to clear up Mooseberry's board. That way he has no bounce targets. We see 4 damage on that Stitch Rockstar. The last time we saw Strathes tap that Stitch, we saw Mooseberry take advantage of it and clean up the board. With no cards in hand, Strathes has opted to leave his Rockstar out. That way he can have a clear board on Mooseberry's side. Mooseberry opts to return or to ink Cloud Kicker in order to return Stitch back to Strathes' hand. By returning Stitch back to Strathes' hand, Mooseberry has made it to where Strathes is no longer able to play it due to his ink restrictions in his inkwell. Strathes doesn't have enough to replay Stitch Rockstar due to it costing 6 ink and having no Stitch on the board to shift onto. Mooseberry presenting his own Glen Rider, able to lure for 2 each turn. The added bonus, which doesn't seem quite to be a problem right now for Strathes, is that if you challenge into Flynn, your opponent has to discard a card. I believe we saw Strathes get the Stitch, but then it got bounced back to his hand due to the Genie. We're seeing a lot of disruption cards from Mooseberry. From the Mother's Knows Best to the Genies, really trying to disrupt and stop really what Strathes is doing. Not able to use his characters to quest, Strathes is starting to fall behind on this game. Mooseberry being up to 12, looking at Strathes 4. Mooseberry using this Madam Mim snake to bounce back that Genie back to his hand. Genie being a strong, powerful disruption card, especially when paired with Madam Mim snake, is able just to recur and bounce cards back to your opponent's hand. Genie is seeing a lot of play during set 1. We see him doing work right here with Evasive. Strathes trying to draw, using his Rockstar to the best of his abilities. Playing a Bodyguard Kita. And this is where the power of Rockstar Stitch really comes to light. Every time it allows you to draw and you're just playing these low-cost characters, it really gives you the advantage to try to refill your hand and get the board state to go wide. Strathes, having used all of his cards in his hand. That bottom card is a Huntsman. Let's see if I can't pull it up here on the stream for us to look at. But Huntsman just being able to quest for 2 with a low cost of 1. Really strong card even though it's uninkable. Thank you, Erden, for typing that out. I'll try to do that in between rounds just to double check. I apologize, it's hard to type and switch between cards at the same time. Appreciate y'all's patience. Mooseberry having a snake and a Madam Fox in play, trying to determine the order in which he wants to challenge these characters. Ida having Bodyguard, meaning that he has to take out her first before he can get to any other character on his board. Barry playing a Genie. Straff is pointing out that Mossberry had forgotten about the challenger. Opting to get rid of her, and Straffy's Lilo. Straffy's taking his turn. I misspoke earlier. The Huntsman is a 2-drop inkable, but a powerful looter, especially in this deck. Straffy's having several cards in his hand, decides to shift on top of the Stitch. We'll see if he'll try to refill his hand again while also building the board state up. Mooseberry really having a hard time trying to figure out how to manage this wide-spreading board. These disruption cards like Genie are just that. They're really great at disrupting. However, whenever these characters can get back onto the board, they can re-trigger their abilities and really help Straffy's to fill up his hand. We saw Straffy's draw a Aladdin. Decides to ink what appears to be a Piglet. Questing, going up to 11. We also see a Huntsman in Straffy's hand. Discards to the Huntsman's ability. I agree, this board is getting very wide. Straffy's really trying to put out as much as he can. If you can't quite protect everything, if you can just put out enough targets, your opponent can't handle them all. We know that Mooseberry has the ability to take care of 3 of them. Straffy's deciding again to use his Rockstar Stitch to quest. Going up to 15. Straffy's having 2 more cards in hand. We'll see if Mooseberry is able to challenge enough characters and bounce enough things back to his hand to handle this board state that Straffy's has presented to him. Very impressed with how Straffy's came back from the disruption of Genie to replay Stitch Rockstar to then refill his hand. Having a Stitch available to shift onto really makes Rockstar Stitch shine, as you're able to keep your ink in your inkwell to a small amount. We see Mooseberry here really trying to calculate what it's going to take for him to get this game win. Being at 12 lore, trying to figure out how he gets there while also making sure that Straffy's can't keep questing with these low drop characters. Stitch being able to quest for 3. And there's a Mother's Knows Best, another disruption card to get rid of that Rockstar Stitch. And here's Mooseberry making his moves to challenge and clean up almost all of Straffy's board. Straffy's left with 1 Aladdin on board, 2 cards in hand. Lots of cards that we see. We know that he's got the Huntsman, a 2 quester character. What can he get out on the board in order to allow him to win next turn? Opts to use everything but 2 ink to play a Rockstar. Draws off a Pluto. Plays a Stitch, draw another card. Strathys is setting himself up, if not for this turn, for the next turn, to try have as much resources in his hand to play everything he can to get the win. Strathys looking pretty good here at 17. Strathys really setting him up in the best position to get this win. We'll see if Mooseberry can respond. Really powerful and strong comeback by Strathys, showing some really good competitive Lorcana, sticking to his game plan by using Rockstar Stitch to try to gain card advantage while still presenting low-cost characters. We see that Mooseberry was able to clean up the board. Plays a Rockstar. He's got 8 cards in his inkwell. If Mooseberry is having to stop Strathys from playing and luring every turn, he won't have the ability to quest himself. He really is trying to find that turnaround point for him. Mooseberry not seeing a way out. Strathys gets game 2 of the top 8. What a strong game and show of competitive Lorcana player skill by Strathys. Really sticking it in there, especially when he was behind. Showing the power and the diversity of Stitch Rockstar. And here we go into game 3. Mooseberry taking the lead. Playing a turn 1 Cursed Merfolk. Card that's really been a huge help to Mooseberry as he's been trying to quest and gain as much lore as he can as early as he can. We've seen a little bit of a discard strategy from Mooseberry, not particularly, but we've seen it in the Cursed Merfolk and in the Flynn Rider. Strathys playing a turn 1 Simba, an answer to that Cursed Merfolk. Chooses and discards a card, passing it back to Mooseberry. Madam M. Fox bouncing back the Cherbog's followers. Madam M. Fox just seeing so much play this match, and in a lot of these Amethyst decks, where they want to recur those cards that have great enter the battlefield abilities. Also having a 3/3 body, just able to challenge and banish the majority, if not all, of the characters in Strathys' deck. A strong turn 2 from Strathys with a Pluto into Stitch. Strathys now having the ability to make characters cost 1 less with that Pluto. Scruffy's decides to quest with the Simba, leaving it vulnerable to the Madame snake. Mooseberry playing his Ursula, Deceiver to All, possibly trying to set up the infamous singing of Friends on the Other Side. We saw Mooseberry earlier in the tournament play Friends on the Other Side, sung by Ursula twice, back-to-back turns, leading to 8 card draws. We've seen before in the past that going first in Lorcana leads to quite a bit of advantage. That does not guarantee the win, though. We'll see if Straffies can come back and really set up some wins, especially with this shift into Stitch Rockstar. Stitch now being a great character to quest with, may be vulnerable if he decides to do it. And he does. He decides to quest with Stitch Rockstar, leaving it vulnerable to Madame Snake, Ursula, and possibly Madame Fox. He decides to sing Friends on the Other Side, just like we had said, drawing himself 4 cards and putting back Friends on the Other Side in the bottom of his deck. Mooseberry now having 4 additional cards in his hand. What a strong line from this card. Chooses to ink an Ursula. Gives Challenger 3 to the Madame Snake, banishing that vulnerable Stitch Rockstar. Merlin Crab just giving characters Challenger 3 when it ETBs and when it leaves, has seen some key turning points for a lot of games during this tournament. Really catches players off guard knowing that when it also leaves the battlefield, when it's banished, or when it is bounced back to hand, it gives a character Challenger 3. Straffy's having another Stitch Rockstar. Trying to protect this one. I don't see any cards in Straffy's hand, however. Hopefully anything he draws, though, allows him to be able to continually draw off the top. Merlin attacks into the 0 attack Pluto. 1 card in Straffy's hand. Interesting board state to be at. Mooseberry with Madame Snake, Ursula, and a Merlin Crab. May have a way to deal with this Rockstar. We'll see if he's got a Genie or Mother Knows Best. But decides to play a goat to go up a couple of lore. I agree, Corsair. Don't mind me drawing 4. That's that is a strong play. Straffy's now having the ability to possibly draw more. He's going to choose to trigger Rockstar Stitch first, I believe, is what he was pointing at. Because you can choose the ordering. Okay, he chose Simba first. I may have missed it. I think he already did draw off the Stitch, and then he did the Simba trigger. playing Aladdin. Playing a second Aladdin. Strophy's now having a Rockstar Stitch, Simba, and 2 Aladdins in play. Really trying the best he can to establish a board state to where he can quest. These Aladdins being 2-drops, but they're inkable and able to quest for 2, making them rather strong. Targets that Mooseberry will probably have to try to target during the next turn. Mooseberry decides to quest with his Cursed Merfolk. Putting him up to 4. Trying to decide how he wants to play out and challenge where. Uses the Merlin Goat to challenge and then bounce it back with Madam Mim Fox. Gaining himself a lore and being able to replay it if he'd like to. Strophy's facing another board state where all of his draws matter with Rockstar Stitch. We've seen Rockstar Stitch so far be able to draw him 2, 3, 4 cards. Osberry using another Madam Mim Fox. Returning his other Madam Mim Fox to hand. Questing with the crab. Strophy is counting his inkwell. He does find a 2-drop, it appears. Possibly a Mr. Smee or Hitta, even better. With a bodyguard, can protect all the other cards. Followed up by an actual Mr. Smee. Having a 3/3 body, very relevant in this case. Needing to overcome Hitta and then attack into a 3/3 Mr. Smee. Meaning that 3/3 Mr. Smee will most likely trade into something. That's only if Mooseberry decides that he wants to challenge into it. Both players really looking at this board state. A lot of characters on the board, a lot of lore to make. It's like Mooseberry is really thinking about the cards he should play. I believe Strophy's has passed his turn. I could be mistaken. Well, these players are thinking, I just want to say how much we appreciate y'all tuning in today to the top 8 here at Evolutions Trading for the first 1K Lorcana tournament of set 3 into the Inklands. Strophy's does appear to be thinking about what he wants to do next. It looks like he may quest with this Rockstar or challenge. And he does. He decides to challenge into the Madam Mim Fox. Having that Kaida bodyguard means that Mooseberry is going to have to clear this Kaida first, knowing that Mooseberry has another Madam Mim Fox in his hand. Forcer, I see you there with that GG. I see that they accidentally touched the game score, but it's still 1-1. But the board state is getting cleared. And there is a Queen's Castle from Mooseberry, a card that has seen a lot of play today, acting almost as a pseudo beast, allowing you to have a character on it, lets you draw a card each turn. More than one character allows you to draw more than one card, as well as giving you the passive lore of 2. Rolling Code, I agree. We're seeing a lot of card advantage from Mooseberry, who has had the ability to draw several times with Ursula singing Friends on the Other Side, netting him 4 cards in 1 turn. All these cards in Mooseberry's Inkwell and in his hand allow him to be able to play really any card that he's looking for each turn. Straffy's revealing a Simba bodyguard. Trying to determine if he wants to put into play in the battlefield in bodyguard mode. Opts not to and passes to Mooseberry, who gains lore from the Queen's Castle. Mooseberry playing a second Hirsch Merfolk, card that we've seen him use strategically to help him gain 2 lore. Along with the goat, the Merliman crab, the Merliman rabbit. See a lot of characters hitting Mooseberry's side of the board. And there is a Cloud Surfer, or Cloud Kicker, to return a character of Straffy's board back to his hand. Cloud Kicker having a pretty good disruption ability, allowing him to return a character to their hand. It appears Straffy has seen enough with Mooseberry's diverse board. 14-7, Straffy scoops it up. And that is your top 8, Mooseberry, Amethyst, Emerald, taking Straffy's with Amber's aggro. We want to thank both players today for joining us here at Evolutions Trading in Killeen, Texas for their Lorcana 1K, first of the season for set 3 into the Inklands. We want to thank you, the viewers, for joining us over here on Twitch, for tuning in for the first competitive Lorcana tournament of set 3. Really looking forward to watching top 4 as we come to a conclusion of this tournament. Today, my name's SirAshtown, and today we are at Evolutions Trading. If you liked our content and you want to see more, head on over to 20lore Pro/Discord, where we have tons of deck lists, deck discussions, and tournament events just like this. If you'd like to watch more on Twitch, we'll be live March 17th in Dallas at the Hunter Burden Memorial, where we'll be hosting the Lorcana Championship. We'll be streaming it exclusively, bringing awareness to suicide within the gaming community. We want to thank y'all so much today for joining us and Evolutions Trading. Again, I'm SirAshtown, your host, and Luxac, our producer in the background. Thank y'all for today. We will see you in the top 4.